So a young man, a friend of my son, who's volunteering as an usher at this conference, asked me yesterday, why am I bringing this conference to Grenada? So I will not speak in usual diplomatic political language about geopolitical tensions and fragmentation. I will speak as the layman speak. It is about money. It is about business. It is about trade. It is about investment. Because as painful as it is for us to accept the dichotomy shown on the screen by the picture that represented our ancestors being traded from Africa to the Caribbean, and the container ship that shows goods being traded to and from Africa and the Caribbean, is making the same point. It is about trade. And so, to that young man, we are bringing the conference to Grenada. It is the fourth. The first started by President Orama and our dear sister and global leader, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley of Barbados. 4 years ago, and continued then successively by our dear brother, President Ali, and the Honorable Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Prime Minister Davis, because we all recognize that we must institutionalize, resource, and support forums like ACTIF to ensure that that young man who spoke to me yesterday understands that the very survival, prosperity, and dignity of him and his peers depends on the economic decisions we make today about the need to foster closer economic and trading ties between Africa and its diaspora. We are in the Caribbean, where the Atlantic meets the Caribbean Sea, where our people greet each other with warmth, with resilience, and so we open our hearts and our minds to all our guests who are with us today. We open our minds and our hearts to the partnership, to the dialogue, and to the conversation about economic prosperity, wealth creation, trade, development, and ultimately the dignity of African people everywhere. And so today, we talk not just about Africa and the Caribbean, we speak of global Africa. And global Africa means Africa and its diaspora everywhere it is. So I want to start by recognizing and paying homage to the bridge builder, by paying tribute to a man whose vision has helped make this gathering and the deeper movement it represents possible, President Benedict Orama. He has not just talked about building bridges between Africa and the Caribbean. He has, to a large measure, single-handedly built the bridge brick by brick, with strategy, with integrity, and with relentless commitment. From trade agreements to investment forums like this one, from transportation dialogue to digital cooperation. His leadership at the Frexim Bank has carved out a space where our regions can meet, trade, collaborate, and thrive. And as Prime Minister Roosevelt said to you last evening, in the annals of history, you will go down, sir, as a pioneer for all African people everywhere. And so we thank you for leading, but not just leading, but by inviting others to lead alongside you. And so this morning, Prime Minister Skerrit suggested, and I have concurred, and I know many of the other CARICOM leaders will concur, in recommending to the CARICOM Secretariat that the CARICOM region confers upon you its highest award, the Order of the Caribbean Community. And I look forward and therefore, with the concurrence of the incoming chairman, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, I look forward to him conferring this order anew at the next sitting of the Caribbean community in St. Kitts and Nevis. But as I'm sure President Orama will agree with me, this bridge building is not a one-man show. The onus must be on all of us, whether we are large or small, whether we are humongous or tiny, whether we lead nations or we lead startup companies, to carry the bridge building forward. We must commit collectively and individually to continuously closing the gap between our two regions, not just geographically, not just diplomatically, not just in spirit. We must do so commercially, practically, with systems and with institutions. And I say this because President Orama remarked in his speech, and he said so last night, there's no point to being famous but poor. There's no point to political independence and poverty. There's no point to music and dance and theater, but no food, no energy, no healthcare, no education, no infrastructure. So for far too long, we have focused on political independence, on sovereignty, on borders, on parliaments, on governance, on the judiciary, but not on business, not on wealth, not on our economies, not on the protection and the dignity of our people. So a young man, a friend of my son, who's volunteering as an usher at this conference, asked me yesterday, why am I bringing this conference to Grenada? So I will not speak in usual diplomatic political language about geopolitical tensions and fragmentation. I will speak as the layman speak. It is about money. It is about business. It is about trade. It is about investment. Because as painful as it is for us to accept, the dichotomy shown on the screen by the picture that represented our ancestors being traded from Africa to the Caribbean, and the container ship that shows goods being traded to and from Africa and the Caribbean is making the same point. It is about trade. And so, to that young man, we are bringing the conference to Grenada. It is the fourth. The first started by President Orama and our dear sister and global leader, the Honorable Mia and more motley of Barbados, 4 years ago, and continued then successively by our dear brother, President Ali, and the Honorable Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Prime Minister Davis, because we all recognize that we must institutionalize, resource, and support forums like ACTIF to ensure that that young man who spoke to me yesterday understands that the very survival, prosperity, and dignity of him and his peers depends on the economic decisions we make today about the need to foster closer economic and trading ties between Africa and its diaspora. So it means, for his benefit and his generation, that the longing of admiring Africa and Caribbean and the Caribbean from afar was put to an end by President Urama. The time for admiration, emotion, and aspiration was turned into actualization, into action, into investment, into financing, and into impact. And what does that impact look like? And repetition is good, because we've heard it from all our speakers. It looks like direct shipping routes connecting African and Caribbean ports and lifting visa restrictions. And we may doubt whether this will happen. I'm sure 4 years ago, many doubted whether we would have an ACTIF. I'm sure 4 years ago, many doubted whether the Afrexim Bank would have been financing over $3.5 billion to Caribbean businesses. I'm sure many doubted whether the Afrexim Bank would be building its Caribbean headquarters in Bridgetown, Barbados. But in the span of under 4 years, it is all happening. And so too, the shipping lines between Africa, the Caribbean, Central and South America, and the airlines can, and if I have anything to do with it, must and will happen. So too, harmonize trade standards that allow our goods and services to move freely. It looks like digital marketplaces that enable our artisans, or creatives, or small and medium enterprises to sell, scale, and succeed. It looks like youth exchange programs already started by Afrexim Bank, already started by Dangote Industries, that allows young men and women from the Caribbean the opportunity to go to Egypt or Nigeria to share, to learn, and to experience, and to change their mindsets about how Africa businesses are viewed. It looks like co-investing in agriculture, manufacturing, fintech, and clean energy, where we are not competitors, but co-creators. We must not forget that Africa and the Caribbean face many of the same existential challenges. Climate change. Brothers and sisters, on the 1st of July last year, 2 days before we were supposed to host the CARICOM conference in Grenada, a Category 4 hurricane called Beryl ravaged the Caribbean. It destroyed almost everything in our sister islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. It did considerable damage to the coast, and in particular the fishing industry in Barbados. And with raging appetite, headed to Jamaica and continued its destruction there, particularly in the agriculture sector, all in a matter of 48 hours. But you know what? With the support of our partners, with the support of our colleagues in CARICOM, with the support of the Afrexim Band, whose regional representative flew down to Grenada and flew with me to Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and who, through the guidance of President Orama, provided direct financial assistance in the form of a grant to the government and people of Grenada, we were able to still host our CARICOM Heads of Conference meeting in July, right here in this very room. And so 1 year later, we are here hosting ACTIF. It could have been easy to say, we're a small island. We don't have the capacity or the capability. But, and as you heard from the former Vice President of Nigeria, size is not the determinant of your destiny. Size is not the determinant of your importance. And if we take our body parts as any indication, the smallest parts of our body, our eyes, our ears, our mouth, our nose, are perhaps the most crucial and pivotal for the functioning of our large organs. And so, yes, the small size of the Caribbean does not in any way take away from its pivotal and strategic importance to global trade. It was pivotal when our ancestors were brought across the Atlantic in slave trading vessels. And it is even more pivotal now to the growth and development of global Africa. And so we possess common strength in our people, in our culture that was so vividly on display, and in our enduring spirit. If we can unite on trade, we can unite on advocacy. If we can unite on common trade standards, we can share strategies. If we can move capital and finance, we can move mindsets. So as we look to deepen our economic ties, we must also embrace the reality that the future of trade, entrepreneurship, and development will largely be driven by digital technologies. And so in my capacity as CARICOM lead head for science and technology and ICT, I cannot understate the urgency and the importance of technology in reshaping all our lives within global Africa. It is redefining how we trade, how we govern, and how we must build prosperity. Africa and the Caribbean are both blessed with a young, talented, and entrepreneurial population. Africa's advancement in mobile technology, fintech, and ICT infrastructure, when paired with the Caribbean's digital creativity, tourism, and innovation, presents a real and immediate opportunity for collaboration and sustained growth. So in Grenada, we are moving with two flagship initiatives that will speak to the heart of this digital transformation. I proposed yesterday to President Orama the Caribbean Institute for Digital and Creative Industries, which we propose will be a world-class innovation, training, research institution dedicated to empowering our region's creatives, technologists, and entrepreneurs. We do not see this as a project, but as a platform to develop talent, preserve culture, and assert our digital and cultural sovereignty. With the bank's partnership, with the partnership of our businessmen and women, our creatives, we can make a regional lighthouse for global digital excellence. Second, we often forget the foundational importance of financial literacy. Throughout Africa and throughout the Caribbean, financial literacy ranks amongst the lowest It is therefore essential that as we host initiatives like ACTIF, that we take the time and we put the resources to ensure that we educate our young men and women in financial literacy. And so in Grenada, we aim, and we have already started, to equip, at least over the next 2 years, all our young men and women with the tools necessary to make sure that they understand financial literacy, that they possess the financial skills for the digital age. From budgeting and credit to digital banking and entrepreneurship, we will roll out a program that we believe can be a blueprint for global Africa in ensuring that the next generation of global African citizens are well equipped to function, succeed in a digital financial world. We intend to deliver this through a mobile-first platform accessible to all global Africans. So we invite the bank, its partners, the business leaders, the entrepreneurs, our central banks, our development banks, to recognize the critical role that financial literacy can and should play in ensuring that we build business leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, to ensure we function successfully in a digital economy that is inclusive, resilient, and Afro-Caribbean designed for our people. In this journey, the bank has not just been a financier. It has been and will continue to be a partner in delivering progress, a catalyst for systems change, a vehicle for South-South solidarity. So we welcome and support the bank's continued efforts to expand trade credit, seed innovation, and champion economic sovereignty for global Africa. But we must all do our part. And therefore, we welcome and will support the creation of a Global Africa Commission, resourced and institutionalized, to support the many initiatives that global Africans require. And the example of the Global Africa Track and Field event is one such example that I'm sure all CARICOM countries will be vying to host. I've already put up Grenada's hand to do so. But since we expect it to be successful and not a one-off, we look forward to all our CARICOM brothers and sisters hosting our African brothers and sisters in such a championship. We look forward to our CARICOM citizens visiting many of the African states to take part and to support and to cheer on such an initiative. And I stop here to indicate that it is revolutionary ideas like these that will excite our young people. When we leave this forum, we must be able to explain to that young man what is the outcome of all this fuss and sirens and blocking of the roads. He must know that him or his friend or his cousin is going to one day have the opportunity to take part in the Global Africa Track and Field event, whether in Kigali or Bridgetown, or NASA or Abuja. Because for far too long, many of our entertainers and creatives have become famous but poor. Well-known but economically weak. And so we owe it to our young men and women to ensure that we let them know that there is a warfare going on out there. It is economic warfare. There are fancy economic terms for calling it: protectionism, tariffs, increased cost of visas, etc., etc. it is about me first, and as Professor Orama said, someone else last. So no one is going to save global Africa, but global Africa itself. And so to that young man, I conclude by saying, and I speak on behalf of all of the leaders of CARICOM, that our political will to support global Africa is unwavering. That we recognize that we are in a seminal moment, but that we are not starting from scratch. We are starting from strength. The history we share together is not a weight, it is a wind behind our sails. So we are not going to leave this forum with just another communique. We will leave with a compact, a commitment to act, to implement, and to transform. We will prove that when Africa and its diaspora trade together, do business together, we will succeed together, and we will rise together. I welcome you to St. George's, Grenada. I welcome you to Global Africa. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the Bud Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.